Welcome to the course How to Carry Out Strategic Workforce Planning. Strategic Workforce Planning DIY, do it yourself. So, for the purpose of learning, we will be making use of the case of a telecommunications company, and in the course of this course, we'll cover 7 areas, which are strategic objectives, scenario planning, identifying capabilities, identifying critical roles, building profiles, identifying incumbents, and then conducting gap analysis. So starting with strategic objectives. Strategic objectives have got a great role to play when it comes to working on strategic workforce planning. So for our case, which is a telecommunications company, one of the strategic objectives is to grow the data business to become the most reliable in the country. What it simply means is that as far as their data service is concerned, they want to be the most reliable in the country. Now, what do we do with these strategic objectives? So the next thing we'll be discussing will be scenario planning. Scenario planning. Before we discuss more on scenario planning, it is important that we understand that some other things need to happen even before you get to scenario planning. A good example will be environmental scanning. You need to look at the macro level, you need to look at micro, and also carry out industry analysis. Now, in doing that, for macro, you're looking at the global space and possibly how it's going to affect business. You're looking at the local space and how it's going to impact business. You're also looking at the industry in which you play. So these are very, very important as far as strategic workforce planning is all about. From a layman definition of what SWP is all about, is you being able to project, forecast into the future in terms of talent requirements vis-a-vis the goals and plans of the organization, ensuring that you have the right fit at the right time to get the job done. Now, for our telecoms communication company, a series of scenarios have been played out, and amongst them is a scenario we have here, which says the future of the industry is data. Thankfully, one of the strategic objectives of the company is to improve on their data business and make it the most reliable in the country. So the future of the industry is data and collaboration with other sectors. Revenue from voice, that is voice, like making calls, will start dwindling by the end of 2019. The success of telecommunication is hinged on the ability to drive the interconnectivity of Internet of Things and provide enablement for the tech ecosystem as applicable to different sectors and human endeavors. To play within this disruptive future, there will be need to upscale our data capabilities in readiness for the change to come. Services in support of finance, medicine, entertainment, sport productivity applications, streaming and virtual operations etc. will be required to be driven by reliable broadband and internet facility. Now, this is what a scenario throws up in terms of the future, meaning that there's going to be a paradigm shift from voice into data, and the business needs to position itself. Apart from this scenario, there will be other scenarios. As a matter of fact, there could be some scenario that says, okay, you know what, nothing is really going to happen as far as the future is concerned. It's going to be business as usual. Some other scenario might be, okay, there's going to be some change here and there, but it might not really be as huge as being disruptive. So this is a scenario. We'll be working on this scenario for this telecommunication company. So the next thing we want to do out of this scenario is to identify capabilities. All right, to start with, what are capabilities? Capabilities are those special abilities that an organization must possess in order to be relevant in times to come, in order to be able to do their job and deliver on their brand promise, as the case may be. Now, like we mentioned in the last slide, that from scenario you can go into identifying capabilities. So from the screen here, it shows that in identifying capabilities, we have to look at different aspects. A good example will be to look at your strategic objectives first and foremost and say, okay, directly from the strategic objectives, are there capabilities we need to build as an organization? In terms of our vision, are there capabilities that we need to look into? Perhaps there's going to be a need for a change in vision or whatever it is. The same thing with your mission statement. For the different scenarios, as the case will be, maybe scenario 1, 2, 3, are there capabilities that we'll need to work on or build as an organization? Now, when you have this sundry list of capabilities, you need to now look at them and see how you can streamline them. Because there's a possibility whereby you have repetition of capabilities across all of these divides. So you need to streamline these capabilities. Also, while you're streamlining the capabilities, these capabilities needs to be defined for ease of understanding. So for our telecommunications company, working with the scenario we've derived in the previous slide, we have 3 capabilities here, which says, number 1, grow capacity in fiber optics technology, advanced capacity in strategic partnership, perfect ability in application development, upscaling and maintenance. Now, these are 3 unique capabilities that our telecommunication company needs to build in order to deliver on that objective, and also in alignment with the scenario that we are working with. So once we are done with this, you want to also identify where in the organization you will find these strategic objectives. Identify these capabilities. So the next thing we'll be talking about or discussing will be identifying critical roles within the organization. Right. When we talk about critical roles, it is important that we know that, or make people understand that all jobs within organizations are important. However, periodically there are some roles that are critical to the strategy of the business. There are some roles that are central, are pivotal to the business. So within the context of our telecommunication company and the capabilities that the company needs to develop or build, we've been able to identify some of these capabilities. Now, there's a possibility of people just deciding on which role they think is a critical role without a science behind it. There is a template that has been designed here for the purpose of carrying out this exercise. So it makes it easy for critical roles to be identified without some guesswork here and there. However, it's also important to state that you will need deliberations. You need to deliberate in terms of which, if indeed the outcome of this exercise projects the real critical roles within the organization for that period of time in alignment with the capabilities that needs to be built. Now, for our using the template for our telecom communications company, these critical roles identified are fiber optic slicing technician, fiber CAD designer, head partnership and communication, IT project manager. It is also important to state that there are instances whereby an officer could occupy a critical role, whereby you necessarily might not capture even the head of that department as a critical role. So it depends on what capabilities and you want to pursue, you want to push part-time. So we need to be very, very mindful. We don't just want to sit down and say, okay, you know what, all head of departments are critical roles. So there needs to be a science behind it. Now, after identifying the critical roles, the next thing you need to do is to build a profile. We'll go into discussing building of job profiles. So in the process of carrying out a strategic workforce planning, Deriving a detailed job profile for each of those roles, critical roles identified, is very, very important. We cannot overemphasize this because it will play an active role in what we'll be discussing next. So here, there's a template that has been designed for the purpose of capturing the essentials of what a critical role entails, also looking at the capabilities and how it's been defined. Now, for competence level, there is need for establishment of proficiency levels for each of these capabilities and all of those things, and how to measure indeed that we do have the degree in which we have these capabilities domiciled within the organization. So once you have your detailed job profile, and please, it's not advisable to just go on Google and start downloading job descriptions. You need to sit down and understand the essence of that job within your organization and put that literature together so that it suits the purpose of your organization. No doubt you can go online and make inference, do your research as to better understand those jobs in like organizations who have the same portfolio. But it's important that in deriving the content for those jobs, it speaks to your organization. So we'll go into identifying incumbents and then conducting gap analysis. Right, so in identifying incumbents, it's pretty straightforward at this point. Remember, we've identified critical roles. Like our telecommunication company, one of the critical roles we've identified is IT project management manager. So you want to spot these individuals within the organization. Whatever critical roles that you've identified, you want to identify this individual by name, find them, and for the purpose of your gap analysis, it is important that you have a competency framework. A competency framework that details competence and skills that is required with the appropriate proficiency levels. I would recommend that you build your competency framework on on a platform, gapmetrics.com. It's easy to use. Just click of buttons, you can put together your competency framework within a record time. So once you have your competency framework, it makes it easy for you to come up with an assessment to identify if the benchmark requirement for this role is an advanced level, where does this person sit as far as this requirement is concerned. That gives you an idea of the gap in terms of competencies. You can also carry out some level of observation and even interviewing of people who work closely with those portfolio owners. So if you get this right, then you will be done with the skills or the competency gaps within your organization. The next thing you want to do is to come up with your action plan. Alright, so before we go to action plan, please permit me to quickly touch on the SWP templates available on femejomo.com. For all these templates that have been referenced in this short crash course, you can have access to those templates for your own use. Tweak here and there, make sense of it, and see how you can make use of it within your workspace. So let's quickly go to action plan. Alright, so action plan. This is the point whereby the rubber is about to hit the road. So there are some things you need to consider and familiarize yourself with. So part of the question you want to ask yourself in designing your action plan is, what is the decision based on the gaps and window period for the realization of strategic objectives and execution of strategy? Now you've identified the gaps. You understand or you know the window period for you to close those gaps vis-a-vis the pursuit of the strategic objectives that informed those capabilities in the first place, or competencies in the first place. Now, in deciding on what best action to take, you need to defer to the 6 Bs. Do you want to build? Do you want to buy? Do you want to borrow, etc.? To make an informed decision. This is something you need to look into. The question you also want to ask yourself is, as far as these roles are concerned within the organization, what is your talent inventory like in respect to the talents required? Do you have a lot of them available? Do you have people you can build to take on those roles between, let's say, for the next 3 to 5 years when you're expected to start materializing your plan? Beyond the incumbents and their corresponding performance in recent past, what are their potentials? I mean, you need to think of, this individual is really doing well now. But when you look at the individual, has the individual got potentials for what you aspire to achieve in future? Is there an alignment between potentials and the strategic aspiration of the organization in which they will be required to play an active role? So you don't want to joke with this. Someone who is really a top performer at this point in time might not really have what it takes to deliver on your aspirations for the future. So a good tool to use for this will be the 9 box. You need to look at it, get performance record for a period of time, at least a minimum, maybe 3 to 4 cycles. It gives you an idea of the trend of performance of this individual. And for potential, you test for potential, learning agilities, and all of those things. You need to be mindful of the availability of individuals you have built your talent strategy around. So example, how close are they to retirement? Because sometimes you have these incumbents and by the time you check, you will discover that these guys are close to retirement. So building your talent strategy around them might be an error within the risk of quadrant of talent. So you can work with your risk management guys to come up with a risk quadrant for talent and plot these individuals there. There are different parameters for building such a tool. Where do they fall? Where do they fall within the risk quadrant? You can collaborate with like I've mentioned earlier on, with your risk management experts on designing a quadrant and plot these individuals. Now, when you do this and you do it methodically, you will come up with a plan. You will come up with a plan that would feed into your strategy and talent strategy. It's also important to state that your plan will impact a lot of things. A good example would be your budget. Quite a lot of it will impact recruitment. It will impact your learning and development initiatives, etc., and many other things. So that is what it is as far as your action plan is concerned, coming up with an action plan. Let's quickly cover the nuggets for SWP. All right, your action plan is very, very important in all of this. So someone should drive the action plan. It should be someone's project. Someone should own it. Collaboration is a key in SWP. It is not just an HR initiative. It should be owned by top management and project managed by the human resource lead. Because you will be working with other stakeholders within the organization, heads of departments and all of that, you need to understand that the buy-in of top management is very, very important. Very, very important. You need to show interest in what it is all about, that it's not just one of those HR projects, and let value be seen and derived from this exercise. SWP is not a once in a lifetime exercise. It should be a cycle of events with select individuals responsible for environmental scan, macro, micro, industry, and running of different scenarios. This can happen. If it's not even out of place if you have this happen twice a year. Always going to review your plan, review your scenario, and match it with what is happening, the realities on ground. A good example will be this COVID-19 case. If towards the end of the year, a scenario was thrown up to say, okay, with what is happening around the globe, COVID and this and that, what if it spreads to our country? How is it going to affect our industry? How is it going to affect our job? Once you do such things and you can see the reality, then you know that you need to start preparing. And probably if you don't have some of those capabilities that can make you prepare and be ready, then you need to start thinking of what to do. Are you going to build? Obviously you don't have the time to build. If you don't really have people that are close to what you want within the organization, then you probably want to borrow, if you want to buy and things like that. Keep it simple and do not make the process complex. As a matter of fact, continue to identify high potential people and have them move around the organization. Actively grow a pool of this individual in alignment with the future need of your organization. You need to consciously identify these people that are doing well and encourage them. Should all of these be done in secret? The truth is, there is no straight answer to this, because in some organizations, if you tell people that, or people get to know that you are working on this individual for future opportunities because of the strategic direction of the business, it might get some people angry. And if you don't tell your people that you are working on them in order to position them for opportunities that might come in the future, there's a likelihood of them thinking of leaving the organization. And when they leave and you get to ask them, well, I wasn't carried along. I didn't know that the company had any plan for me. So you need to understand what will work within your organization and see how best to go about it. So this is a crash course on SWP, and I hope that you've learned one or two things. Again, you can access the editable templates on femiojomo.com. Okay, on this point, thank you very much.